It's a great day. My name is Shay Brown, the happy entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we're on a mission. And our mission is to empower, our mission is to inspire, and our mission is to provide you, that's right, you, the hard working entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this particular episode, we have the one and only Jared, who's in the business, and he'll be talking about mastering the basics of balance. Is that even possible? What's up, Jared? How you doing?
I'm good, Jay. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here, man. Now, I don't want to come across as Debbie Downer, by the way. I know we're going to have a wonderful episode, but we're talking about balance. And just so we can have your view of the world on the basics of balance. Number one, what does balance mean and what context are you talking about it? And if you can explain that, then the audience, we all have an idea what's going on. I'm thinking work-life balance, but I may be wrong. But over to you, man. What does balance mean to you these days? And what does it look like? That's the question.
All right, so that's a great question, Jay, and it's actually really important that we do get a solid understanding for what that means walking into it. Everybody likes that concept of work-life balance, and that is critically important, but all the things that entails as far as your interpersonal relationships, your work relationships, I'm a firm believer that the quality of our life is a direct reflection of the quality of our relationships. So the framework that I use to assist my clients and to work through these things for myself and trying to strike that harmony is it all equates back to the model that I use for 6 human needs. So basically, it's a psychological ideology that wraps around 6 different points of pairs of 2. There are 3 pairs of 2, total 6, right? And each pair of 2 has a tendency to pull against the other one. A great example is the first one we usually reference is certainty. And, we all need to have that foundational sense of, hey, the roof's going to stay over my head. I'm going to have something to eat. We all need that. And then there's the subsequent and kind of pair need for variety. We don't want to do the same thing all the time. And then there's love or connection, and then interpersonal significance. You want to fit in and you want to stand out. And those 2 things, they don't always reconcile one-to-one with each other. In fact, most of the time they don't. So the last 2 pairs are growth and contribution, and you can kind of see how those are harmonized and then also can pull you in different directions. So we look at that entire picture of 6 human needs and do evaluations on relationships and on work and on your life outside of work, and try to make sure that everything is aligned and you have that harmonious balance all the way around. So hopefully that clarifies and gives a pretty good picture for where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm. That does. And as you were talking, if we had to speak to the person, and just so you know, about a good part of our audience, they're dualpreneurs. And they're like, wow, that sounds good in the perfect world. Like he says, they don't line up. But Shay, what does he say to the person that me that's very busy? I work a full-time job, Shay, and I'm a full-time entrepreneur. Now, I'm curious what his thoughts are, Shay, because I also take care of the husband, or I take care of the wife, or I want to make sure he's aware. I have kids, okay? And I've got to make sure the kids, they have their own activities. And he's saying balance. Does he not know that I'm also involved in my community and other affairs? So if you can ask him, Shay, just a question, how do you find balance when there's so many different priorities that are pulling at you at the same time? Now, Gerard, that might be an unfair question, but we like to get your view of the world.
No, I don't view that as being unfair as far as a question at all. It really speaks to the pressure that we're all put under from our society, from our upbringing, and from ourselves to be like all things to all people. And those things are definitely a part of my life too. I'm involved in a relationship with my partner, and I've got 3 kids, and I am also a dualpreneur. So the important thing is to look at where you prioritize those things and to make sure that you're finding that balance for yourself, which, can sound a little bit like a cop-out, but before you're going to know what balance means to you, you really need to know yourself. So getting aligned with your core values and then balancing those against the needs and how you're meeting them, and ideally in a healthy and fulfilling way, that's going to lead you to that sense of inspiration, that sense of empowerment that you started out today's show talking about. It helps you feel like you're really in the driver's seat because you know what you're doing and you have a model that you can evaluate your life pattern against.
And we're going to find out who he is in a moment. I know y'all are curious. Who is this person, Shay? What's his background? What's his story? We'll get to that, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
you've probably heard this before, that consistency is the key. Consistency is the key. Consistency is the key. And having said that, what do most people struggle with? I got two hands raised, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry. It's consistency. So I'm curious, what do you share with folks that need to get back on track? So they're like, I know what he's saying. Sounds good, but I kind of fell off track again. I guess the direct question is, what do you tell yourself from a mindset perspective in order to get back on track again when it's not the first time you got off track? If that makes sense.
No, it does. So this is kind of a two-part question for me. So I'm going to break it down and kind of get you a sense for first where I'm coming from as far as my foundational views. Okay. I identify I am a Christian. I have been my entire life. And I understand that, the teachings that I received from my pastor have kind of illuminated a few things from me in terms of being able to make that assessment. And if I get off track, if I get off balance, it's all about being able to love yourself enough to recognize your worth and then realign yourself with your ambition. So if we can be grace, if we can give ourselves some grace, understand that, yeah, we're going to make some mistakes. We're going to fall off track sometimes. Life happens, right? But grace in and of itself is not the total definition of love. There's also truth. And you need to be able to give yourself a little bit of hard truth, be able to say, look, why did I fall off track? What happened to me? What external pressures came in that I then reprioritized and stepped outside of the things that I'm passionate about, that I want to do, that kind of pulled me away. And those are the two elements that really line up the most for me, is giving myself some grace so that I can acknowledge, hey, I'm going to make these mistakes, but I have to be truthful with myself too and identify why I made those mistakes. And to me, those are the two key elements in getting unstuck from that place of, verging off path and not being in alignment with what I'm trying to accomplish.
I love it, man. Take a moment if you could and tell the folks a little about, who are you? Like, everybody's not reading the bio. There's some folks right now, they're listening to us in their AirPods. They might be at the gym. They might be in the car listening to the podcast right now. Somebody's playing it in the background. Some people, I know some of y'all have read it. I get it. Y'all are looking right below the video. Y'all are reading it because you're watching it live. But for those folks that don't know who you are, take a moment to tell them who is Jared, number one. And number two, what was that defining moment in your life that led you to doing what you're doing now, which is help people really have the balance that they not only deserve, but they need in their life?
So again, that's a really big question. So I'll try to keep this one concise. I began my professional career actually in high school. My mom is an entrepreneur as well, and she ran a tax preparation business. And one of her clients had a small business down the road running a dog kennel. So that was my first job. I could walk to it, and at that point, I was happy to have a job, happy to get some work. But then, my father, who was also an entrepreneur, he worked as a framer and ran several contracting companies coming up when I was about that age. And, so I already had that role model, those two examples in front of me. And when an opportunity came up, my dad bought a one-man auger. And he's like, hey, I'll take out an ad in the newspaper. You guys field the calls. It's for me and my brother. You guys field the calls. You guys do the work. You guys do the invoicing. And, once you've paid me back for the auger and the advertisement, this baby is yours. And so the idea of being an entrepreneur and working for myself, setting my own schedule, and allowing myself to have the flexibility and freedom that I value in my life started, like, basically, I was happy to have that kennel job, but I was equally happy to step away from it and start working for myself and doing things to, kind of propel myself forward from that point. And I've had several other positions where I've worked for people since then, but, after I finished university, I moved to Seoul for 2 years because I had started training in martial arts and I wanted to refine my practice and learn from, the point of origin. And I did study Korean martial arts. So I spent 2 years over there advancing my studies, and I came back and opened my studio, bought a house, and got married inside of 3 months. And I ran that studio for about 20 years. And that was a great life for me. It had all day that I could pick and choose, where I wanted to spend my free time. And then in the evenings, I got to be working on my career, working about what I was passionate in as far as teaching others, helping others learn the confidence and the self-defense skills that come from that kind of training. And, over time, you start to recognize, well, I started to recognize that, yeah, I'm teaching class every day and I'm teaching these people like valuable self-defense skills, and that can inspire confidence. But my actual hope was that they would never have to use what I taught them. So I started to restructure my instructional model to focus more on the value of life lessons, and I built a curriculum around each rank progression, also having values training and as a mandatory part of the curriculum. And that's where I started to get more traction as far as interpersonal gratification. I was happier to be able to teach those skills to these kids and to see people come in and not be able to stop looking at their shoelaces, to be able to keep their head up and move forward. And that's really what pushed me and inspired me to step outside of martial arts and into life coaching, which is another business, that the one I'm currently in the process of developing from its nascency. I mean, I just got started in this model, but I'm really excited to be putting work into it.
And you talked about martial arts. Thanks for sharing, by the way. And we were talking beforehand about some of the things we enjoy as passions. What's one, two, or three of the life lessons that you just learned from martial arts? And the reason I asked that question, I'm a runner. I run 5 marathons, and sometimes there's lessons I've just learned from doing that. And we're all curious. You brought up martial arts. You brought up being in Japan. I'm like, oh no, Shay, don't let him off the hook. Like, what did he learn? Like, what's one of the lessons that he learned that's helped him in life just from martial arts, from a person that owned a business and taught other folks? So we're curious. I know that wasn't part of this whole balance thing, but we're curious, man, because that's a good foundation.
Actually, Jay, it's a perfect tie-in to that concept of balance. Okay, when I was living in Korea, I was 24/7 go 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 go. Tony Robbins has this great thing where he'll ask you if you're a human being or a human doing, and at that time I was 100% human doing. I was working for as 4 to 5 hours a day teaching English to kindergartners and preschool kids, and then I would immediately leave, get on the train, ride the train for 2 hours, get off, and I would train until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in the martial arts, and then I would step out and get up in the morning and go right back to the kindergarten and teach. So that was my pattern for the better part of 2 years, and I ran myself into the ground, made myself like physically ill at times, just overextending myself. And you have to learn, like, where is that balance? I was doing what I was super passionate about. I mean, I wasn't complaining about the process. I mean, I really enjoyed that, but I also had to recognize, like, hey, maybe this really isn't the best thing for me to push it at this pace. So taking a step back, spending more time just with myself and for the people in my life outside of the martial arts world, it really helped me to like get realigned and get back into balance. And um, when I was in Seoul and doing the training on a daily basis and having to live immersed in that lifestyle, like, it was difficult for me to get that perspective. But when I came back to the United States and I had all these friends and family around me again that I had been away from for 2 years, it kind of forced my hand in that respect as well. So did martial arts necessarily teach me that lesson? Um, I guess indirectly, yeah. By having to take that little splash of cold water in the face to get my head on straight, it definitely showed me that. Directly applicable to the skill sets that I learned, the mental skill sets, the physical skill sets, speaks to that concept in the title of this presentation today, and that is on mastery. And mastery comes from the repetition of the basics. You're never going to learn how to throw an advanced hand skill if you can't keep your guard up straight. It all starts from those foundational things, and once you have that mastery from repetition of consistent practice of basic techniques, you can build from that into further things. And that applies unilaterally. I mean, I put it to practice all the time in my business, in my personal life, and in my martial arts training, of course. So hopefully those two concepts reconcile well, and that feels like a good answer for you.
That's perfect, man. And you talked about life coaching, and life coaching means different things to different people. Take a moment and talk about the area of life coaching that's near and dear to your heart, and what you're able to help people accomplish. Like, what's the result when you work with folks that they get on the other side? And I love that that we take care of ourselves first, that we make sure we're okay. I'm curious. I'm sure the audience is probably curious. So the question is, life coaching. What's one of the problems that some of the folks have that you work with? And then what's the result they get on the other side after working with your company and your organization and implementing your methodologies and practices?
Okay, that's another great question. And specifically, I deal with men who are dealing with separation from a long-term relationship, disillusion, or divorce. Divorce is one of the most traumatic events that can happen in a person's life, and I went through it about 3 years ago, where my relationship that I'd been in since high school. We'd been together for about 20 years, if you include the time that we dated. And that relationship came to an end like right after my 40th birthday. So we're coming out of 2020. Everyone had to deal with COVID. Everyone had to deal with a lot of professional life changes. And then my personal life went through that significant adjustment as well. And I had realized that, you know, that set me back into a position of where like I had to reevaluate what I was doing with my life. And I have a really good friend who lives in Florida, and about 3 months after I received notice from my ex-wife that our marriage would be over, I took a trip down to see him. He's always been a good source of comfort for me, and he's a great advisor. And he also lived with me and trained in soul, so we have a lot of overlap. And Mike's really a great guy. And I was down in Florida and visiting with some of the friends that he had made down there that I was unaware of, and one of them was a guy, and he had um, come into a position where his parents had done really well, but he had never really picked himself up after his own divorce. So subsequent to his parents passing, we were helping him move out of the home that they had built, and just kind of seeing the way that he had become stuck in that position of like no ambition and no strong push to kind of get out and do more for himself post divorce. He had allowed the house to degrade to where it was now being repossessed, and I just saw that, and I knew myself in the position I was in. And then I saw this as the stark contrast to what I wanted for myself. And so I began to I picked my head up, set my eyes on where I wanted to go, and I started taking concrete steps every day towards helping me to get to that position. And that was just that masterful application of basics, that attempting to put myself back into balance that I had drawn from my martial arts experience and from what had served me well to that point. And I realized, after I also enrolled in a night course so that I could get my MBA as a part of that process. And when I completed my MBA and I sold my business, the martial arts school, and I'm starting to evaluate, where can I add the most value back into the world? And it kind of took me back to that place of like, hey, I was able to pull myself out of this position. And I know that there are guys out there who get stuck. And so I wanted to be able to put into practice for them some of the things that had worked well for me. So that's the transition into life coaching. That's the niche that I try to serve, is helping men come from a position of like disruption and turmoil and trauma, and trying to get them clear, head up, eyes focused, taking measured steps towards what they want to accomplish, so that when they come out of that position, they are feeling empowered and they have an understanding of that framework and those basic things that are necessary to continue moving forward, to where they don't need me as a coach anymore, but they can put that into practice for themselves.
Well said. And as you was talking and speaking about that, as a person, someone who's, I've been through 2 divorces. I'm on my third marriage. Don't judge me. We're very happy. It's been 15 years, so I know what that traumatic experience is like, by the way. Here's what I'm curious about: the mindset. Are there one, two, or three affirmations that you tell yourself in order to keep your inner voice and your inner confidence, your inner self-esteem kind of going, by the way? And maybe affirmations isn't your thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian as well, so I get that. But I'm wondering, is there one, two, or three affirmations that you share with yourself, or did you share with folks that you're helping, that just means something to you? And the reason I'm asking this, ladies and gentlemen, is I know mental wellness is very serious. It's very important. And we want to speak to the person that's out there that might be going through some things, male or female right now. And one or two of these affirmations might be the spark that you need to kind of get going. But these are ones that's near and dear to his heart. So what's one or two or three affirmations, man, that you have that you tell yourself that allows you to stay focused?
Okay, so I'm not really much of an affirmations guy. I don't
Okay.
have like, if I were to speak to something that I regularly tell myself, it's just remember your worth. He who is inside you is greater than he who is in the world, and there is no limit to the things that I'm able to accomplish. That's kind of, I keep that at the forefront of my mind, but it's not something that I like repeat to myself like an affirmation. Um, I am a strong believer in thought control, making sure that you give yourself the proper like auto suggestions, that you don't allow those intrusive thoughts to take up arms against you. And it was on another podcast I was listening to. I'm not a like an MMA guy in terms of where I can tell you the name of the fighter who was speaking and like his record or anything like that. But I do like watching it, and I am entertained by the world of it due to the overlap with my martial arts stuff. And there was one fighter, and he was undefeated. Again, I'm not going to be able to come up with his name, but they were interviewing him, and they asked him a question that spoke to this too. And I also kind of referenced that. And now he says that he has that monster that lives in his basement. That self doubt, that that pressure to try to do more and second guess and all of that. And he says he visualizes taping up that monster and pushing it back into the corner. And if I get to a point where I kind of feel that creeping up on me, it's not necessarily an affirmation, but I do put that into my mind of like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to tape that up. I'm going to push it into the corner. I don't have to give those thoughts any space in my head frame, so that I can, focus on positive things and just try to replace it with a more proactive thought.
Wow, powerful, man. I love the way you shared that with us. Thanks so much for being so authentic. We have a segment here called "Today is my January 1st." He shares so much with us, ladies and gentlemen. It's amazing. But this segment, for those folks that are listening, and every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you tune in, and I know you can't wait to say those magical words. Today is my January 1st. I know that sounds good. For all the folks who are joining for the very first time, welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We're glad that you're here. Please tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today is my January 1st. Represents a fresh start. It's our personal mantra. It represents a do-over. It means our past, no matter how dark it is or how bright it is, our past no longer equals our future. And so my question to Jared on the other side is that when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? And number two, what was another moment in your life, man, where you had to bounce back from something that was a setback?
So when I hear that today is my January 1st, it just reminds me that every day is a new day. It gives us the opportunity to take full appreciation of the simple things that are present in our life. And then, happy, never satisfied, right? Always take a moment, situate yourself, be appreciative, be joyful for what's around you. But, the good is the enemy of the great, right? We always want to try to push ourselves, especially entrepreneurs, especially I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that one. I heard it from you first time today. But people working that full-time job and then an entrepreneurial effort, you're going to need to satisfy that part of yourself too. And having every day that mindset of like, hey, my past does not equal my future. And today is another opportunity for move forward, take those small steps, those measured, calculated movements every day towards my new trajectory. That's the January 1st thing for me. And to be fair, I've never been a big New Year's resolution guy. I always thought that, hey, if I'm going to make a change, I'm going to decide to make that change today. So having that concept of, today is my January 1st, any day can be that day. Any day can be a day for a new resolution, for a new decision. And
I love
I'm
it.
sorry, really quick, remind me, please, the second part of the question.
No, that was it. What do you hear? Then what was another moment in your life where there was a January 1st moment?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I've just forgotten.
No
So
worries.
I do a lot of like exposure to good material. Okay, that's very important to me to keep like positive motivational messages, growth and learning opportunities. So in the car, I'm in automobile university. 24/7 if I'm in the car. So I'm always listening to a new audiobook or revisiting some material that was impactful for me. And um, it's actually something that it came to me when I was at a conference. Okay, was running my martial arts school, and I just finished the E-Myth, and I just stepped out of that idea of like, hey, just because I'm good at martial arts, that means my business is going to be successful, which is the E-Myth, like consolidated into a sentence. And I decided that hey, I really needed to put some more work onto the business side of things. So hey, I'm going to start going to these conferences, right? And one of the speakers, he's actually the host of the event. His name was Mike Perella, and he got up on stage and he's like, hey, like you guys, you're not just martial artists. Someone who's just a martial artist is somebody with a heavy bag in their garage and some sai hanging on the wall. He's like, you guys are businessmen and women, and you need to focus on that side of how you're going to add value to the people around you. How can you reach a wider net? How can you cast a wider net? How can you be more things to more people? And that's actually what got me kickstarted on being that automobile university student and seeking out those resources and reference points so that I could start to move my life forward every day like January 1st. So big ups to Mike Perella, and then just being able to shift my mindset to take on that kind of a framework.
I love it, man. What do you do for fun when you're not out saving the world?
Wow, it is very time consuming saving the world all the time. So, you know, um, I'm actually, if I have like just free time for myself, I like to just relax. And I like to read. Like I said, I like to listen to audiobooks. I'm actually uh, very involved with I like to play cards, and I like to spend time with my girlfriend. I like to just be outside. Anytime I can go out, go for a walk or go for a jog on a trail, that really helps me connect and get some time for myself. Meditation is also a big for me. When I get some free time, I like to set out, 10 or 15 minutes and just work on some transcendental meditation practices. So if I'm not out saving the world, I like really just to dial back, relax, and spend time with the people I care about, and put in some work on myself.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate that. One of my favorite questions to ask when I get a chance, and I do get that chance this evening, is what's one of the best pieces of advice you've ever been given, right? And I'll frame it for the audience that Jared's had. He's had so many mentors along this journey of life. It's kind of unfair having to reach out and have to grab any one of these mentors. But if he could grab just one thought or idea from any of the mentors that he just wants to share with you, what would it be? And so I guess the question is, what's one of the best pieces of advice that you've ever been given?
Uh, so that's actually very accurate that I have had a lot of influences. But if I were to pick the one uh, bit of advice that I got, it would come from my late teacher. His name is Lee Ji Hoon, and okay, so in order to get framework for this, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to digress a little bit, right? But
Sure,
what
go
we
ahead.
did as far as how we practice that martial art, it was a high energy based martial art, which means like they used ki or chi in order to develop our bodies, our senses of ourselves, and our internal energy, right? And that can be a difficult concept to grasp, especially like me walking in. I had no credence, no credibility, no reason to believe that that was actually a part of things, but that was very eye opening for me. And the way that he taught, which is not outside of keeping for the methodologies for teaching that start of martial arts. You can either practice a form, like Tai Chi, if you're familiar with that art. They move slowly, they stay in tune with their energy. Another way that you can be exposed to that is to have somebody who has experience with it, like my teacher did, communicate that energy to you directly by hitting you. And that was a regular part of practice. He would hit us once without gi, and then secondarily with gi, and then boom, what's the difference? Explain it to me. Explain what your body just went through, right? So you can imagine this can be very painful, can be very difficult practice. But the advice he gave, getting back to the question that you asked, was every time he would say, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." And to be fair, he would always drop the B. He was a "don't afraid." And I assume that had something to do with the English translation, but that's the way that plays in my mind. They say a coward dies 1,000 deaths. I don't want to live a life like that. And I received that. If I'm gonna I know I'm gonna get hit, and I know that there's gonna be that side of it, but I also know that I'm gonna learn through that getting hit and not being afraid of taking those knocks so that I can come out on the other side with a better understanding. I mean, it's really hard to fathom some better advice than that. So, again, you know, God rest his soul. But big ups to Lee Ji Hoon, my Sabunim, for teaching me that lesson early in life and enabling me to have the confidence to move through challenges and to not succumb to fear.
I love it, man. Haven't heard that before, so I like that. Thanks for sharing. I wish we had more time as we come down the home stretch. So I want to ask you a final two-part question, which is number one, what type of clients are you looking to work with? Again, if your firm's taking on any clients, I don't know if you're booked or not. And number two, how can folks best connect with you? So if they want to stay in this conversation over and beyond the day, how can they do that?
The easiest way to stay in touch with me is through social media. You can find me on Facebook is primarily where I reach out to and engage with my clients. I have a private Facebook group where I work with the types of clients that I'm seeking, and I am taking on a few new clients right now. So the best way to reach me would be to contact me through Facebook or Instagram, which I kind of monitor peripherally. I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to me there. But the best thing to do would be to get that point of contact, and then I take my my clients, and we put them through that Facebook group and get them engaged with the other individuals there who are all like-minded and going through a very similar experience or have been through it and are very forward and very comfortable with contributing their advice. And I provide weekly trainings for the members of the group, and that's a good way to kind of get in touch with me and get a better sense for the way that I approach my clients and see whether or not it's going to be a good fit, both for me and for any man who might be going through that experience or have some benefit that they feel that they can offer to the group for having been through it themselves.
Wow. Well, let me say thanks so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show, man. I appreciate it. It's all about balance, ladies and gentlemen, and it's possible after this conversation. So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, Jay. Thank you.
And thank you to viewers. Thank you for tuning in. Without you, well, there is no show. So we appreciate you being here every night, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I never get tired of reminding you that you're amazing, that you really are truly a very special, unique, incredible individual. And as you're watching this now, you're super awesome. And for you, today is your January 1st. And because of just that one reason alone, I believe your best is still yet to come. They ain't seen it yet. Your best is yet to come. Your best is still yet to come. With that being said, my name hasn't changed. It's still Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone, and we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. Peace, everybody. We out.